In Jujutsu Kaisen, domain expansion is seen as the peak of curse techniques, and for good reason. It's like taking a sorcerer's personal domain and merging it with their unique curse technique, then wrapping it all up in a nearly unbreakable barrier. Inside this barrier, the user's technique becomes insanely powerful, and any attack they launch is guaranteed to hit whoever gets trapped in there. It's a brutal ability that gives the user a huge advantage in battle. But even something this strong isn't unbeatable. Sorcerers and cursed spirits have faced domain expansions for centuries, so over time, they came up with ways to counter them. These strategies, called anti-domain techniques, were designed specifically to deal with domains that might otherwise seem impossible to escape or defeat. Anyway, please tell me your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any daily uploads. The first technique to counter a domain expansion is called domain clash, and while it sounds simple, it's incredibly hard to pull off. Basically, when your enemy activates their domain, you counter it by activating your own at the same time. What happens next is a clash between the two domains, and the outcome depends on the strength of each user. If you're stronger than your opponent, your domain will completely overpower theirs. Think of it like Gojo versus Jogo. Jogo, where Gojo's domain just swallowed Jogo's like it was nothing. But if you and your opponent are equally matched, the clash cancels out the guaranteed hit effect of both domains. It turns into a battle of endurance, and whoever runs out of energy first loses. This is what happens when Gojo and Sukuna go head-to-head. However, if you're weaker than your enemy, well, their domain will completely crush yours. It's game over. The best part about domain clash is how straightforward it is. You don't need to think too much, just activate your domain and hope for the best. If you win, you not only survive, but also set yourself up for a devastating counterattack. But here's the downside. You have to be absolutely certain that you're stronger than your opponent. If you're wrong, this move could be your last. Now let's talk about Hollow Wicker Basket, which is kind of the opposite of domain clash. This technique is all about defense. To activate it, the user makes a hand sign by interlocking their fingers and extending their arms forward. When activated, it creates a shield around them that looks like a woven basket. This shield neutralizes the barrier of a domain, canceling its guaranteed hit effect. Sounds great, right? But there's a catch. It doesn't cancel the curse techniques themselves. So if you're facing an incomplete or non-lethal domain, Hollow Wicker Basket might not help much. For example, Regi's Star used it against Megumi's domain, but since Megumi's domain didn't have a guaranteed hit effect, Regi still got wrecked by his toads and clones. Sukuna, on the other hand, used Hollow Wicker Basket against Yuta's domain, and while it worked to cancel the barrier, it occupied two of Sukuna's hands, which limited his options. The Hollow Wicker Basket is a low-risk, low-reward move, which is why many sorcerers and cursed spirits rely on it. It's an ancient technique, so you mostly see it used by characters from the past like Regi's Star and Sukuna. Unlike Domain Clash, it doesn't let you counterattack. It's purely defensive, but sometimes playing it safe is the best move. In the end, both Domain Clash and Hollow Wicker Basket have their strengths and weaknesses. One is risky but can turn the tide of battle in your favor, while the other is safer but more limited. It's all about knowing your opponent and picking the right moment to use them. The third anti-domain technique is called Simple Domain, and it's basically the upgraded version of the Hollow Wicker Basket. Imagine taking all the good things from the basket technique, removing its flaws, and making it more reliable. That's Simple Domain. That's why it's such a popular choice among modern sorcerers. Here's the backstory. During the Heian era, a sorcerer named Sadatsuna Ashiya created this technique to protect weaker sorcerers from domain expansions. He called it a domain for the weak, and even made his followers swear a binding vow to keep it secret. But here's the twist. It's so simple that other skilled sorcerers saw it, figured it out, and started using it. Basically, his attempt to keep it exclusive backfired. Big time. So how does Simple Domain work? It creates a small personal domain that neutralizes the guaranteed hit effect of an enemy's domain expansion. It's not as flashy as a full domain, but it's effective. Unlike the Hollow Wicker Basket, which struggles against some types of domains, Simple Domain works across the board. The catch? It doesn't completely shut down a proper domain expansion against a really strong one, Like Sukuna's or Kenjaku's, it only buys you a few seconds before the enemy's domain crushes it. What makes Simple Domain so interesting is its versatility. It's mainly defensive, but it can also be used offensively. Some sword techniques are even built around countering anyone who enters the range of a Simple Domain. Plus, sorcerers can customize it with specific rules and vows to give themselves an edge. Now let's talk about how it's used in the series. Sorcerers like Todo, Yuki, and even Gojo have pulled off this technique. Todo learned it from Yuki and tried using it against Mahito, but it was just a split second too slow to fully counter the attack. Yuki herself used it to survive for a few moments against Kenjaku's overwhelming domain. Then there's Gojo, who mastered Simple Domain but couldn't pass it on to others. During his battle with Sukuna, Gojo's domain was destroyed, and he had to rely on Simple Domain to stay in the fight. Even then, Sukuna's domain was so powerful that it broke through, forcing Gojo to keep healing himself while improvising ways to survive. Simple Domain is a perfect example of how jujutsu sorcerers adapt to survive. It's straightforward, cost-effective, and doesn't require insane skill to pull off, which is why so many sorcerers use it. But when you're up against the top-tier fighters, it's only a temporary solution, a way to buy precious seconds and hope for a miracle. In Jujutsu Kaisen, the most common anti-domain techniques like Domain Clash, Hollow Wicker Basket, and Simple Domain get a lot of attention. But there are some rare and unique methods out there that only a few people can use. These techniques, Falling Blossom Emotion and Domain Amplification, are in a league of their own. They're either super secret, ridiculously hard to master, or both. Let's break them down, starting with Falling Blossom Emotion. A hidden gem for the elite, this technique is exclusive to the big three families, the Zenin clan, Gojo clan, and Kamo clan. If you're not from one of these families, forget it. You won't even hear about it, let alone learn it. What sets Falling Blossom Emotion apart is that it's not just defensive like other anti-domain techniques, it's aggressive. It doesn't wait for the enemy to strike. It pushes back. When someone activates Falling Blossom Emotion, their body gets wrapped in cursed energy, like an invisible force field that automatically counters any cursed techniques that come close. This makes it great for neutralizing the guaranteed hit effects of domain expansions. The cursed energy reacts on its own, attacking whatever touches it, almost like it has a mind of its own. But there's a big catch. It offers no protection against physical attack. You'll stop all the cursed techniques in the world, but a simple punch, that'll still land. A weaponized twist, Falling Blossom Emotion isn't just for self-defense. It gets a deadly upgrade when paired with swordsmanship. In this form, the cursed energy also coats the sword. The moment the sword or its energy touches anything hostile, it strikes back automatically. It's like turning your blade into a cursed energy magnet that zaps whatever comes near. Naobito used Falling Blossom Emotion to slice through the fish before they could even touch him. It was almost like he was cutting through the air with ease. But here's the thing, Dagon didn't stop. The fish kept coming, and the sheer number of them eventually blocked Naobito's vision. With his view obstructed, Dagon got close and landed a punch. That moment exposed the flaw in Falling Blossom Emotion. It's amazing against cursed techniques, but useless when someone decides to fight up close with good old fists. Why it's sad and brilliant. Falling Blossom Emotion is one of those techniques that feels both incredible and frustrating. It's brilliant in the way it completely nullifies cursed techniques without the need for complex setups. But it's also sad, because no matter how skilled you are, it has a glaring weakness. If someone like Dagon can overwhelm you with a mix of relentless attacks and brute force, all that cursed energy means nothing. This makes the technique both inspiring and bittersweet. Domain Amplification is a unique anti-domain technique that feels like a mix of all the best defensive moves rolled into one. Imagine wrapping yourself in a personal, invisible shield, kind of like a Simple Domain, but much closer to your body, almost like armor. The difference here is that Domain Amplification doesn't just block attacks. It actively cancels out the opponent's domain expansion entirely, giving the user a chance to strike back physically. The trick with Domain Amplification is that it neutralizes the opponent's curse techniques by essentially creating a blank space where those abilities dissolve on contact. This makes physical attacks way more effective since it removes the sure hit feature of most domains. But there's a trade-off. The user can't use their innate techniques while domain amplification is active, meaning they're stuck fighting hand-to-hand. Gojo himself described the experience as feeling like the initial push of a domain clash, his sure hit effect being weakened but not entirely nullified. Domain amplification takes this concept further by fully erasing the opponent's curse techniques, leaving them vulnerable. However, because it doesn't require binding vows or overly complex setups, it's also more practical compared to other anti-domain techniques. One standout example of this technique is Sukuna. He uses domain amplification in ways that most sorcerers could only dream of. During his battle with Gojo in Shinjuku, Sukuna used it to cancel out Gojo's infinity, just like Jogo did, but with a lot more finesse. Sukuna has such precise control over his cursed energy that he can switch between using his innate technique and domain amplification seamlessly. In fact, during their clash, he even managed to use amplification within his expanded domain, a feat almost no one else can pull off. What's even crazier is that Sukuna found ways to minimize damage with amplification. For instance, when Gojo hit him with Curse Technique Reversal Red, Sukuna used amplification at the last moment to shield himself, reducing the impact. The beauty and sadness of domain amplification lies in its limitations. Sure, it can nullify curse techniques and leave an opponent wide open, but it comes at the cost of sacrificing the user's innate powers. That's why only elite sorcerers, like Sukuna, can use it effectively. For the rest, it's a gamble. You're relying on your raw physical strength and reflexes, which might not be enough against some of the deadliest sorcerers or curses. In the end, domain amplification is a brilliant strategy for negating even the most overpowered abilities. Anyway, please tell me your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any daily uploads.